And is this, what is this, fourth, fifth GTN weekly?
Oh,
Fourth?
that's a good question. Fourth. Oh, now I'm having to think. Fourth, I think.
I think it's the fifth. If I look at our agenda notes, it's the fifth.
Look at
It
this,
says
picking
we've
up
done
speed.
4 complete. So I'm just going to open with the terrible statement of like, what the fuck is time? It's been 5 weeks already. Holy shit. What else is new? But yeah, if you put together the schedule for this week, so it's your show, you take us away. I don't want to take over.
Awesome.
Here.
Yeah. Looking forward to the 5th episode of the Go to Network show. A few things we're going to talk about. I'm looking forward to asking Max some questions about the Grove Cookie Company. When I first started looking at ComSort months ago, it was when they were doing the bracket competition. I just love cookies as a service. So like how that's worked for ComSort, when you think it works, when it doesn't. We're going to talk about the success we've been seeing and already award nominated anti-advert that Mac published.
Like Wednesday? I think like pre-nominated is actually the term I would use, but like
we're going to win some. We're going to win some awards. We're going to some competitions for sure. Oh, we've lost Mac. He'll be back. Let me send him an invite. His internet's not the one at the moment. Mac.
Hi. Oh. We've switched sides. Why not? Just to be
switched sides. Look at this.
Real, but virtually. I don't know what just happened. Restream just froze and reloaded for me.
Well, at least you're back. And then we're going to go through some LinkedIn posts as well. See what people are talking about out at the moment. Feel free to throw in the comments any questions you've got, anything you're seeing out in the GoToNetwork sphere, and we'll go through it as well. But Mac, anything you want to add before we jump in?
I mean, I missed half the schedule you said, but I'm just going to assume that it sounds good, and it's the thing we wrote before we went live anyway. So let's roll with it.
Awesome. Grove Cookie Company. What? You're now also. You've got my name on LinkedIn, by the way. Look at this.
Oh. How did that happen? Can I change that?
When you left and came back.
We've accidentally revealed our secret project, which is a cloning device to take your best salesperson and have more of them. Like everyone's saying it's AI, but no, it's making physical copies of your best salesperson, not digital.
That's why we're dinosaur themed. We are really going after Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah, cloning. We're like, but we're using dinosaur DNA to improve your salespeople. They literally eat the prospect if they don't sign by the end of the month.
Love it. Cookies. Talk to me. How did you first come across the Grove Cookie Company? Have you used them? What do you think of it all?
LinkedIn, I think. I want to say it was LinkedIn, or Katrina found them, and she probably found them on LinkedIn. But I think that's kind of the thing, is that they're the way that they are not your traditional LinkedIn company and have done such a good job, specifically Grayson, of growing on LinkedIn. Is really interesting. And obviously their target buyers live on LinkedIn, but it's a good example of like, you don't have to be a like sales marketing product to do things on LinkedIn well. I guess you could argue that gifting is sales marketing kind of though, but like it's not, I wouldn't call it tech. Cookie tech. Big cookie tech is really taken over, right? Like can't trust them. They've done a great job. I think it's like, and it's interesting to me how much people. It's also a good example of brand, I guess. Like there are a lot of cookie companies out there, right? But the people who want Grove cookies and the people who send Grove cookies, they're like diehard Grove cookie fans, right? Like, and they're good cookies. Don't get me wrong, but like a cookie's a cookie to an extent, right? So it's like, because Grayson has spent time building relationships with people and gotten to know people, and you know Grayson almost before you know the brand of Grove, and at least for a lot of people, it's like, of course you're going to support Grove. When you're like, I need to buy cookies for someone, I need to do a gift, this makes sense. It's like relatively cheap, it's easy. Like who doesn't like cookies? You know, it checks a lot of boxes. But it's like I can't even think of like, I'm sure I could go to Google and I could find another cookie company I could send as a gift. But if I'm like, I need to send cookies, it's like, I can't name another company right now for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And like this kind of thoughtful gift like just really lands well. I knew a chief customer officer that had hacked together in their Salesforce environment a way when one of their customers raised a round, they would be able to, in any country that they had a customer, send a bespoke order to a local cake shop that they already had an agreement. So a bespoke cake would be delivered with their logo, the customer logo, and congratulations on series, whatever it was. And he was like, it's super hacked together, but it's like this thoughtfulness and timeliness, and the person needs to enjoy it in the present moment as well. Is just super effective.
Yeah. And it's just also, it gets away from the whole like we're a fan of swag. We've done a bunch of swag at Comstar, right? But it's like, if people don't actually want so much swag, is like, here's a thing that you're probably going to throw out, right? And it's like cookies, like you're going to eat, like you don't feel, I don't know, I feel bad. Like it's like when someone sends you a gift, you're like, it's like, they send you a cheap plastic cup and a cheap speaker or something like that. And you're like, like, I just feel like money and resources were wasted, and this is just not good for the earth and landfills and whatnot. Whereas cookies are like, they're cookies. I'm going to eat them. They're gone. Cool. Right. Like it just, I don't know. It just has a different, it just feels
if it's sent to the office, you're going to share it. People are going to go, who sent these cookies? And you're going to say that company's name about 30
people still
times
work
in 5
offices?
minutes. Occasionally, I've heard rumors.
Interesting. The true dinosaurs, if you will.
But that's a good question on the sending swag. Let's call it swag for simplicity.
Yeah.
Like, do people want companies to know their home address, or at least you need to ask, hey, can I send you something? What's your address? I think if something turned up out of the blue.
I've never had, first off, I don't know how you would, I guess there's probably some data tools that could tell you, but like, I've never had an issue asking people, be like, hey, I want to send you something. Can I have your address? They're like, yep, cool. Here you go. And you're like, thanks. And if you use like a Sendoso or one of the other ones like that, you can just send them a link where they fill in the address and you never see it if you do want to get more advanced from like a privacy perspective. But I've never had an issue just asking someone for their address. To be fair, that might be partially due to the fact that like we have a reputation for sending good gifts. So if someone's like, oh shit, Comstar is sending me something, of course I'm going to say yes to that, right? Versus like, and these are typically people we've at least built some sort of connection with. It's not just like, I feel like if, like I definitely get emails being like cold emails being like, hey Mac, we've never met, but like click here to like, we'll send you a gift. And you're like, what? Like, I don't know who you are. Yeah. I don't even know what you want to send me. Like, no, those I don't click on at all.
Yeah, you mentioned as well back in the fundraising days when investors would send you like a bottle of wine to really show intent, but you don't drink, and you're like, well, this is it on your side. You thought it was thoughtful, but on the recipient side, complete miss.
Yeah, and they definitely were. There was Sendoso just did a study. Oh, I'm gonna have to pull up the exact numbers because I hate sharing stats without sources and actual numbers. It is, bear with me. It's coming, I promise. That's the wrong profile. Oh God. Not Slack. LinkedIn's being slow. Come on. Do your thing. There we go. This study was super interesting, which was, okay, so just some stats on gifting. I think then we can move on to another topic. They asked, when are you most likely to keep, enjoy, or use a swag item? 65% said when the item's useful, 29% said if it's a premium item, 7% said if the branding is subtle. So it was like it being a useful item, a thing I'm actually going to use, was the number one most important thing, which, duh, like when you say that out loud, you're like, no shit. Like, but companies keep sending like shit that I wouldn't like. My whole premise is like, if someone wouldn't buy it from you, don't give it to them for free. Like, you're just sending people garbage, right? And then the other stat that I thought was really interesting was when you receive something unbranded, do you remember the company or person who gave it to you? 61% said yes, 24% said sometimes, 15% said no. So the majority are like, yeah, even if it's not branded, right? I think that's like going back to Grove Cookies, you can put a sticker on the box and you send it, but like the cookies themselves are obviously not branded. Like, until they can like do dino shaped cookies, then we'll really start sending Grove Cookies, right? But and then the last thing I thought that was interesting was, what is your preference for company branding? And the options were clever or design based, subtle branding, no preference, or no branding. Only 8% said no branding. 21% said no preference, which is just like slap your logo on a t-shirt, who gives a shit. 33% said subtle branding, but 38% said clever or design based. And to give ourselves maybe some credit, I think that's one of the reasons why our swag works so well, is because our logo inherently doesn't feel like a logo, right? Like the dino on the hoodie, it's just a dino hoodie, right? It's like, and if you know the dino's comp store, then it's a comp store hoodie. But if you don't, it's just a dino hoodie, right? So it's like, it's like an unfair advantage. Obviously, not every company can do that, or things like, like the Lego dinos that we've done. Like, if you know that this is based on our logo, yeah, otherwise it's just a cool Lego dinosaur, right? It's like, the branding is not as important as like the more subtle connection to the brand, the thematic connection, if you will.
Yeah, love it. And I think the Dino Fuzz is amazing in terms of, stickers, books, T-shirts. Like, you sending stuff. A lot of our buyers, we've talked about before, a lot of our buyers have young kids. So being a Dino brand is incredible, because the buyer loves the swag for themselves and also for their family.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of like brand and advertising, should we bring our guest speaker in?
Let's do it.
I should maybe have told them to join like 2 minutes ago instead of saying join now, because now there's like this awkward delay of like, and our special guest of the week is
joining shortly.
Now, sort of.
Well, do you want to play the advert?
I don't know if I can.
Good question.
I think I can share my screen, but I don't think it'll play the advert. We'll put a link to it in chat if you have it up there on YouTube. Yeah. And we're going to bring our special guest on in 3, 2, 1.
Hello.
Oh, shit. There's 3 of us now.
Oh, my goodness.
Nail the timing.
How you guys doing?
Yeah. That was actually, you joined it right as I was like, and the guest is here. Perfect.
All right. Perfect. I was like trying to log in as fast as I could. I was like, oh my god.
You nailed it. Don't worry. It's speaking of nailing it and doing a great job. A lot of people have reached out to me, and probably to you, because they probably know you made it. But to me, a lot of people have reached out and said like they loved the anti-ad that we posted. Was that yesterday only? Once again, time. What is time? It feels like it was already like 8 days ago, whatever. Yeah. I've had people reach out saying it's the best B2B ad they've ever seen. I've had people reach out just saying this is a great video. I had someone reach out and say that they're nominating us for like a B2B ad award thing. Cool. I think the funny thing is, when we made it, I don't think we ever once thought of it as an ad, which I think is kind of the funny part, right? We're not paying to promote it. We're not pushing it anywhere. We're not using it in advertising. But wanted to bring you on and get your thoughts on, obviously you filmed it, produced it, edited it, made it a lot better than it would have been if you hadn't been involved in it. So I wanted to get your thoughts on like, the process behind making it, why you think it works, what you like about it, what you hate about it, wherever you want to take the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I was just telling you, it's funny because I feel like I almost didn't put a lot of thought into it, and that's maybe why it turned out okay. I think that it stands out because it doesn't look like the hundreds of thousands of same B2B ads that look the exact same. Like, we did something different. That's just kind of who Comscore is. We do things a little different, and that's how we went about it. This is one of those videos though that it was just so flow for us. Like, you had an idea, and Mac, I think we work really well together in this. You have an idea, and then we start bouncing back and forth, and it doesn't feel like I'm making a video, like it kind of feels like it's just coming out. Like it's
the video just appears.
Yeah, that's how it feels. And having a pretty backdrop like Montana kind of helps too.
I think that helped with like the pattern break as well, right? It's like, I think, if I think back on some of the best B2B video ads I've seen in the last few months, I've seen like, I think it was either ClickUp or Monday, and I know they're competitors, so whoever it is going to be mad that I actually can't remember which of the two did the ad, because that kind of defeats the point of the ad. But I'll get back to why that's important in a second. It's like they did a really good ad. It was really funny, but it's in an office. And it's like, I remember the ad was funny. I can't even remember what company it was. It's one of two, right? But because it felt like every other ad, in the moment, I was like, oh, this is funny, haha. And now a few months later, it's like, it was generic project management company, because at the end of the day, you could have replaced the logo at the end of the video with any of their competitors and the ad still would have worked, right? Or just anytime they mentioned their name, replace a different company's name. And I think that's the thing as well, that like the ad was very, I mean, not just because the dinosaur was in it, but like you could almost, there was like obvious Comscore personality in that ad video. Now I'm calling it ad. It's not an ad. I guess it is, but it's a video.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that I pride myself on with Comscore things, or at least what I strive for, is to not blend in. And so like another big video that like I adore is the House of Authentic Connections video. And in a lot of ways, that one has also stuck with people. Like sometimes people will come up to me and be like, "Oh, you made so and so video." And I'm like, "Yeah, I did make that."
I've
So in
definitely
the
gone back and
same,
rewatched that in like the last few weeks. It's a
It's
great
beautiful.
video.
I think it's like gorgeous. And I think that's just like going to be a pattern. Like when we have the big hitters, like we're doing the pattern interrupters for sure. And yeah.
I think it's also, once again, coming back to this, like, once again, this productivity ad that I have as a comparison in my head. Once again, it was creatively a great ad and a great video. But once again, because I don't remember the company that was in it, I'd actually argue it probably wasn't a great ad, right?
Yeah.
Or at least it's
Good
not an ad
comedy,
that has
but it wasn't a good
it's not an
ad,
ad that has longevity. Like it might have worked in that moment when I saw it, but now effectiveness to zero.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what you talk about where like you spend ad money. What happens when you stop spending the ad money or stop clicking the dialers? It stops producing for you. And so that's just like one of the things that stops producing for you. But when you make your own like tone and voice, and our videos are so unique to what's out there, it doesn't stop producing, because we're going to get comments on this video for a couple more months. Like when you go to all the events in the fall, people are probably going to bring it up.
Yeah, for sure. I think also the other point that's important is that most of our inspiration, we look at like other marketing. I would say 9 times out of 10, when a video gets shared internally as an idea or an inspiration, it is not a B2B video, right? It's like, I mean, this video was quite frankly, like almost shot for shot, like word for word, obviously replaced to be honest, but like a remake of an ad that the Oslo Tourism Board did, which was like a joke of like, Oslo's not even a real city. Like, and they were joking like, oh, you don't even have to wait in line for stuff. There's nothing exclusive like New York. Like, but the kind of person who would want to go to Oslo, that would be appealing, right? And that was kind of the whole point. And I know we've got a few other videos that we're planning right now that are, you know, the inspiration for them is like weird viral videos from like a decade ago, or consumer ads or things like that. It's not B2B software ads.
Yeah, I mean, and just to give a preview to everybody, like 3 of the videos I'm working on right now, one of them is Hugh Hefner inspired, one of them is Kazoo Kid, another is like from a Fanta commercial, like the most random. So like, yeah, we're not pulling inspiration at all pretty much from B2B right now.
I'm going to use my own advice, by the way. I think I said that on a LinkedIn post a few days ago. That would make a great LinkedIn post. Just you making a post saying, hey, by the way, 3 big videos I'm working on right now are inspired by these 3 things. People will be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you doing behind the scenes over there? None of that makes any sense.
People are going to constantly question our video strategy. Like, what are we doing here?
But once again, it's like half the battle is getting someone's attention, right? Is standing out, is being where it's like, you can have the best messaging in the world. You can have the best product in the world. But it's just like, we live in an attention economy. So if your shit reads like someone else's shit, looks like it, sounds like it, once again, I'm repeating myself, but that ad, I cannot remember what company it was for. It was for insert generic productivity company. Like, that's it. That's it.
I mean, even like in the influencer space of things, like people are starting to set up, or they have been for the past couple years, like even set up their backgrounds the same. Like they have like the moody lighting where they have the practicals in the back of like a lamp or something. And it's very typical. And that also, I think, is why our personalities are standing out. Like Mac, you very much so have a unique background with the yellow painting and all that. And so I don't know. It's just like our content just finds ways to stick out a little bit.
Oh, I have a green screen up right now. Shit, just kidding. You saw nothing behind the scenes. No, you saw nothing.
Is there even a yellow painting? What do I believe now?
Maybe the yellow painting was fake the whole time.
It was green, actually.
Yeah, I feel like it's funny. I feel like I feel like the short form video style. Dale said it must have been Monday, the generic productivity company ad. I'm pretty certain it was Monday or ClickUp. Like I'm 90% certain it was one of those 2, but once again, like if you showed me their two logos without the text, I'm not sure I could tell you which logo belongs to which company either. Just like, or if we took their screenshot of their websites and hid the name of the company, I'm not sure you could tell which one is which. I mean, they're fine products, but like, it's just B2B or that. Like, that's most branding. What I was saying is, I think with B2B videos, like, I feel like 6 months ago, the talking head became very popular, right? And like, we're doing talking head ones, sure, but a lot of them, I think a lot of people started copying like Chris Walker style, right? It's like sitting at the desk,
absolutely,
almost like looking like I'm on a podcast, even though I'm not on a podcast, right? Adam Robinson has done that style. Chris Walker's done that. I've seen a bunch of people copy that. And then I feel like the first person I saw do this was Morgan Ingram, but it might not have been him. But he started doing the like, I'm sitting in a chair in the middle of a room style, like a more like, and I've seen like Troy do it now. And then they're not bad videos, but it's funny when you see these sort of like cycles come and go, right? I've seen a ton of these now where it's like, instead of being at a desk, I'm now in the middle of the room. And it's just like,
have you seen what's coming next? Because you can predict it based on what was like the consumer side. It's that you're following me around on a busy day.
Oh,
so we're getting in and out of a car.
I've seen a few of those as well, but I thought you were going for like, they went from behind the desk to just the chair in the room. Then they're going to be empty room with no furniture. Then they'll be outside, just like slowly removing things that make it feel like they're in an office.
Make it feel like they have nothing. Like they're gonna,
There is
you just keep tuning in, like what's going to disappear next?
I think a good example is Liam, I don't know his last name, Storybook
Liam
Marketing.
Maroney.
Yeah, where he always does his like sitting outside, like in the woods with like a cup of coffee in his hands, I think. And it's just like, once again, like I scroll through the feed, I'm like, oh, I just instantly recognize that as a Liam video. I've had people tell me they see the yellow background as they're scrolling, like, oh, that's a Mac video, right? And they see, or they've actually said, I see yellow background and weird shirt. And like, that's a Mac video. I guess I'm kind of letting that brand down today, but it's fine. This is not a Mac video. This is a Christian GTN show. So
I mean, so Liam is actually one of my main examples that I use for people who are interested in getting started with video content, because he does basic so incredibly well, but he's such a pattern interrupt at the same time. So you can still be a pattern interrupter if you are just being simple with it.
Yeah, I think it's just him with like a mic and his phone on a tripod sitting outside, right? But it's different. It's not the desk video. It's not the like overly processed professional video. It kind of goes back to, you said this way back when, of like the anti-editing, right? It's like we went through this big period from the last 10 years as like editing got more and more and more intense. Like it used to be just YouTubers talking to a camera. Then they got editors, and those editors got more creative. And now it's back to just like person talking to phone is what people expect. Or not necessarily expect, but just they just want something more authentic. Like the more edited and the more polished something is, honestly, for me at least, like almost like the less I trust it.
Yeah, the less it feels like it's for me. You're like, oh, there's a whole audience watching this. Well, when it goes back to just an individual talking to the camera, it takes you back to that one-to-one vibe.
Yeah.
What else do you guys think is the future of video then? Like where, if it's cyclical, or my opinion is that like B2B video is just like a generation behind YouTubers. Like you can just kind of go, oh, what worked a few years ago there, and it's going to slowly come over. So what do you guys see as next?
If we are following the pattern of B2C, then we go into like massive consumerism, like spend $1 million with us or who's gonna win $1 million? Like
here's my B2B software shopping haul, and it's just like I bought $75,000 worth of software. I'm not going to use any of it.
Here's my 200 licenses for this software. Yeah,
I have 3 people at my company.
I used all my Series A money on whatever.
Or it's going to be I don't know if that'll work. I mean, someone will try it, maybe. I am seeing like the game show vibe start to appear in like some sort of ways. I've seen a few folks start doing that. I think that's been a very popular format thanks to Mr. Beast the last like 4 or 5 years in consumer. Is like, I'm going to get 5 random people, give them a challenge, see who wins. And we kind of did that in Florida earlier this year. We did like the Taskmaster style videos, sort of like get some people, give them a task, see if they do it. Like it was very, very basic, but I have seen that happening a lot more, like some like competitive stuff. I've seen a couple of events that are starting to do like, they want sponsors to sponsor like, competitions at the event, like a pickleball competition or something. So like getting like, I think more interactivity in the content is what's coming. It's like, you know, the talking head video is great, but how do I actually get my audience in the video?
I'm looking forward to more crossover episodes. You know, when two different influencers appear in the same video together, you're like, yes, it's happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I still am betting on YouTube just because as my generation is coming up, like that's where we spend so much time and not on LinkedIn. And as we start becoming decision makers in the next 5, 10 years, I'm still betting that you need a presence there. That's
It's a
where I'm at.
terrifying thought. You as a decision maker? Oh my God.
I kind of make some decisions sometimes at Comscore, okay?
That's true. That's true. No, you
Yeah.
make a lot of decisions.
Yeah.
We all
Sometimes,
do, for better or for worse.
But Raina, where do you do your research then? Does YouTube play a role early in your research? Like, is it kind of where you get awareness, or later in the pipe for you?
Of when I'm researching products?
When you're making it, like when you're going to make the decision around a product, like
Oh,
is
yeah.
YouTube having a greater influence on the awareness, like early on, what's even
I
out there,
think, like,
or
yeah, for me, YouTube is my baseline decision maker. Like, that is, like, I will search there first. Like, say I wanna buy new equipment, whatever, I watch probably, like, 10 different tests of how a certain microphone works before I make that final decision. But the weird thing is also that I'm starting to use TikTok as a search function, and so I'm also doing testing, like, not testing, but I look up how does what and what so and so work, but without getting banned, I don't know how much longer that's gonna last.
Is it like actually
it,
getting banned, or is it still
yeah,
like it's like a will they, won't they? It's like a bad TV show that just will not give you an answer for seasons
Yeah,
on end.
that's
Ross and
exactly it. I'm
Rachel, yeah,
like, it's so uncertain. Like, I don't
yeah.
know. But, yeah.
Cool. Well, any last thoughts, comments, questions, concerns? I don't know if you have death threats about video. That doesn't really make sense, but if you have them, feel free to share them.
Yeah, that's what I have, yeah. No,
If you
thanks for
don't have
having me
video,
on,
I will
guys.
kill you. If that's Raina's last comment.
If you hate video, you're dead. Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, Raina.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
See you guys.
And
Mac, anything you want to
over
add?
to- No, I think that was great.
Exactly.
I mean, we kind of went from the anti-ad down to video in general, but I think it was great. I mean, obviously, I fully agree with everything Raina's saying. Like, she's on our team. That's why she's here, is because like we agree with her perspectives and the work she's doing. I mean, like, I'll end on one thing. Since I started doing video on LinkedIn, my average weekly impressions, new followers, demos booked, everything are like 5x higher in the last like 3 months than the previous 3 months. That's just one data point, but like, take it as you will.
And all you need is a yellow painting and some snazzy shirts and
Yeah.
an iPhone.
Yeah,
And cool.
pretty much. All right, what's our next topic? We're only halfway done.
Next
Look at us,
one.
making good on time.
Next one. Like obviously we look at the referral space. Like I think it makes so much sense. I speak to some companies that are like, oh yeah, we rolled it out. You know, we announced it and people were excited about it. People signed up, but then nothing came through. And the reason it's on our agenda is yesterday, 30 minutes apart, I got super similar emails. One from Apollo saying, hey, we've now got a referral scheme. This is how it works. Click here to join. And then, 30 minutes later, exactly, from RevOps, hey, we've now got a referral scheme. This is how it works. Click here to join. Like, what do you see of is this just going to be a wave where everyone comes out with it, but it's not really thought through? Like, with your background in community, like, you just have so much more knowledge around the referral space. What do you make of it all?
I will say, before I answer that, I want to add one piece from this that Scott Lee shared in a post recently-ish. He spoke to a company working in SaaS who paid out $45 million in referral fees last year alone. Which, if you assume the average referral report I've seen is somewhere between 10 and 20%, but that means that company did $225 to $450 million in net new ARR on referrals, assuming they're paying out 10 to 20%. I don't know, could be different, but like, I would be surprised if they were paying out more than that. So if anything, the numbers are higher. I've seen people pay as low as like 5% or 3% if it's like a really big deal. But so it definitely works. if you do it right. Like that, like, can you imagine $45 million in referrals and you didn't do anything else to get them, right? Like, holy shit. Like every sales and revenue leader should be like drooling right now, right? When they hear that. I think from my conversations, a lot of people are rushing to add referral programs. Everyone's talking about it, right? Some of them are doing it manually. I talked to a lot of people running it in spreadsheets and very, very janky. I think the problem is, once again, this kind of goes back to the whole like B2B being behind B2C. Referrals have just been like, referrals and affiliates have been a thing for 20 years in B2C, right? It's like, oh, you love our product. Here's a link. Somebody clicks it. I'll pay you. But that's the problem in B2B. You can't just be like, hey, Christian, here's your link. If someone clicks it, I'll pay you. And like, yeah, if you're, you know, Apollo and most of your customers are paying $90 a month PLG, that can work. But if you're selling 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, $1 million a year software, nobody's going to click on a link and make a purchase off that, right? At least I hope not. Like those days of just like, yeah, I think, you know, quick purchases like that, those are a little bit behind us now. Like maybe they'll come back, but they shouldn't. It's actually not good. It looks good in the short term, but bad. Don't do that. So I think everybody's trying to do it because also it's the same reason like our whole Go Network thing, right? Like people aren't hitting their goals. They aren't filling pipeline. So they're looking for other ways to get their pipeline filled. And they're realizing like, oh shit, if I have happy customers, like I can just ask them to send me deals. And what people don't realize is like paying out 15% referral. Like if you referred me $100,000 deal and I pay you 15,000, some people's reaction is like, Jesus Christ, that's so expensive. Statistically, that is still cheaper than if I had gotten that deal from other sources, from, you know, paying for an SDR, paying for outbound tools, booking a meet, like all the other stuff that goes into getting a meeting and a deal closed other ways. It's actually not that expensive in the grand scheme of things.
Particularly if you then, you know, let's say you've got a lifetime value or, you know, average lifetime of a customer of 3 years. So yeah, you paid 15,000 on 100, but actually it's 300. So you paid 15 on 300. And
well, some referral programs pay out. They keep paying if a customer doesn't.
Yeah, it's true.
Renew. It depends on the
HubSpot did that
company.
for a long time before they changed it.
Yeah.
But the stats seem to be as well. If a customer comes in via referral, they stay longer, and the person who made the referral stays longer as well. So yes, you're giving out 15%.
And they close faster. They're like, they onboard faster. Like you and I just had a call with a salesperson a few weeks ago, and they were like, yeah, the fastest deals are always the one that come in where they've already spoken to a customer. Even if it wasn't a direct referral, it's like people don't trust what vendors say, right? It's like they trust what people they know say. And that's why referrals work so well. It's like pretty straightforward. I think the last time you bought something, right? Like you ask, like you bought a bunch of like video equipment recently, right? Like video and audio stuff. What'd you do? You asked Raina, what do you recommend I buy? Because Raina's the expert, you know, and you trust her opinion.
Absolutely. What I'm really excited about in the referral space is, and again, like, you know, again, B2B is a bit behind B2C. In B2C, the concept of super consumers became known over the last 20 years. And it's that Pareto principle where 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. I think it's the same with referrers. 80% of your referrals are going to come from 20% of your referees. So when you find that person who gives the first referral, how do you figure out, okay, is this the kind of person that can give us 5 more in the next 6 months? Like, what's the infrastructure we now need to build around them? So it's not just how quickly can we get someone to refer, it's how can we get them from 0 to 1 and 1 to 5. That's what I think is going to be really exciting, because it's not everyone who's going to do it, but it's the people that go, hang on, I'm going to get 10 grand every time someone follows through on this action. I had a buddy that I used to live with that did arbitrage betting. Only arbitrage betting. So, you know, like, okay, this is a free bet where if I do 10 euros down, I can only ever get 10 euros back, worst case, but get 20. He would take days off work sometimes because he was like, no, I can make 400 euros doing this. And to me, I'm like, that's it. There's not a good use of his time. But to him, he was like, this is a no-brainer. And when you find the people that love your product and are like, the maths on me referring people because of the community I have is a no-brainer, you can find them and empower them. You can do so well with a referral scheme.
I think the other problem is the way most referrals work. Like I'm looking at the 2 emails you got, right? They're like, hey, Christian, please refer people to us.
Yeah.
Like, That's it, right? Like, yeah, they're like, oh, we'll give you some money, we'll give you whatever, right? Like, how like a little stupid Apple bubble just to appear there and try to. It's mostly got hidden by the green screen. And I think a lot of times the reason why people see they'll either see very little success from a referral program, or they see a lot of upfront success and then it drops off. It's like, hey, we launched a referral program. Please refer. You go, oh shit, I know 3 people right now. Boom, referrals made. And then over the next 6, 9, 12 months, you're like, why are we not getting any referrals anymore? So they send out another email being like, hey, please refer people, right? Which is like what those emails you got were. Because they're putting the onus on you as the referrer to do the work. It's like, hey, Christian, can you think of someone that would use Apollo? And you're like, after like 10 seconds, you're like, nope, can't think of anyone, move on. You got other shit to do. That's not your priority, right? Which is why very often the top referrers end up being like agencies who are thinking about your product all the time with their customers, but often they're actually not the best referrers. Your customers are, but they're not thinking about you and who they should refer to you. So it's like, it's as simple as just ask people who you want them to refer, right? Like whether it's as simple as like go to their LinkedIn or who they work with or like stuff like that. Just be like, hey, Christian, can you refer Raina to me? Great. I've done most of the work for you. You go, oh shit. Yeah. Raina would be a great referral. Let me make that happen. And then just ask. I think salespeople also, like I've had times where I've been on a call. Someone's like, I love this product. This is awesome. But for whatever reason, I can't buy right now. Timing is wrong. Budget is wrong. Fit is wrong, whatever. But they go, but then I ask like, I'm like, hey, but do you know anybody else that would be a good fit? And very often they're like, yeah, I can introduce you to 1 or 2 people. So I have turned like, a not right now into 2 or 3 more leads just by asking.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And it's when people are excited, you should ask. And, excitement can happen at random points, but that's when you need to pounce on it. And you're absolutely right. The more targeted you can be with the request, the better. I was a CSM in the past, and I would get, show them how well they're doing with a product. They'd be super excited. Say, who else do you think should see this? And you could see their brain was just having to switch 6 gears. And they're like, I'll come back to you. And
you get nothing.
They love the product. They wanted to help. But because I couldn't say, I know you know these 3 people, which one of them do you think I should speak to first? They couldn't provide me with that help.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're a great growth channel if you can do it right. And even like, you don't always have to give a monetary incentive to make it happen. It can just happen.
I think one of the issues, and I've experienced this firsthand with companies I've used in the past, worked with, and then they've said, hey, would you do, referrals for us as well? I'm like, yeah, sure thing. One of the problems I've experienced is it's very binary as to whether they say, yes, you get a reward or not. And the rules can be, oh, well, we spoke to 1 person at that company 6 months ago, so therefore it doesn't count as a referral. And so you refer someone, you get paid for it. You're like, this is amazing. You try and refer 2 or 3 more people, and for some very arbitrary reason, they're like, no, that wouldn't be helpful. You should still introduce us, but we wouldn't give you any compensation around it. And when that happens 2 or 3 times in a row, you're like, oh, you know what? It's not worth the effort. So I think the binary nature of a referral, I think also plays into being a problem too.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's not as simple as people want it to be. They think, oh, launch referral program, boom, revenue. And it's just,
yeah,
it just doesn't work that way as much as people want it to work that way.
And I think that one of the complexities as well, and it's going to be different for each company, is like, is it sales, marketing, or even customer success? Like who should be running this thing? Like,
well, I mean, that goes back to the idea. It's just revenue. It's like,
yeah.
People, and then like you get back to like people are going to fight over attribution, and then the program will die because no one can figure that out. And it's like, I mean, infighting between revenue functions at a company, I think, does more harm than anything else at a company. I mean, like, maybe besides bad positioning and bad product, like maybe third place is infighting. But assuming you've got a good product and good positioning, fighting over who gets credit,
yeah,
you're on the same freaking team. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, because you're wasting time on money that's already come in the door.
Yeah.
So it's a double whammy of both teams are wasting time, and the revenue's already been claimed. Like, just go get more. We'll figure it out later. Or like you say, like, just have to acknowledge sometimes you can't assign it.
Yeah.
Anything else on referrals? Otherwise,
I have so many thoughts on referrals, but I don't want to spend the next 20 minutes talking about just that when we have other things to talk about. I think it's
I'm thinking the Patrick Trumpy post.
Yes.
Let me.
This is a good one.
Should be able to
Let me see if I can
screen.
share my screen. Or you want to do it?
I can do it. Hang on. Yeah. I can zoom in if that's not big enough as well. How's
Yeah,
that size
zoom
wise?
in, zoom in like with the mouse, so you're cutting off the edges. Yeah,
Oh,
there you
yeah.
go. There you go. Much better. And then we'll bring that onto the screen. Nice. I'm just giving folks.
Dive in. You got thoughts, I'm sure.
I know I sent you thoughts on this post this morning. And what was the line I used? Signals without relationships is like SpongeBob without Patrick. Or Batman without Robin, or peanut butter without jelly, whatever iconic duo you want to insert in there, right? I think it's right. Like, obviously, signal-based selling has become like the thing. It's like started probably like 5 years ago, seriously, but really the last like 2 years has really taken off. But so many people are still relying on third-party signals, and I think they confuse the signal with the message. Like for example, this is Patrick saying like, "Hey, we received funding." And I got a bunch of emails that referenced our funding in the round. And it's like, so like the funding might actually be a good reason to reach out to Patrick, but is the funding the reason you're reaching out, right? It's like, no.
Yeah.
So it's like, I bet you there were smart sellers that reached out to Patrick that were like, oh, he raised a bunch of money, I should reach out to him, and then didn't even mention it in their outreach, right? But it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with videos. If you look and sound like everybody else, well, you're going to get lumped in with everybody else. And the example I like is in the comments of this post, I mentioned how it's like very similar to like, podcast appearances or liking a LinkedIn post or job changes. Like everyone just uses the same damn triggers and it's so bland. But then it's like, well, what about user gems or Champify? Isn't that the same thing? That's job change alerts. I was like, no, that's job change alerts, a signal plus relationships, your existing customers, right? It's not just Christian change jobs, therefore I should sell to him. It's Christian change jobs, and I've already sold to him. Like that, and is a really, really important part of that conversation, right? It's not just because you change jobs, but so much of signal-based selling right now is we all consume the same third-party signals. We all do the same messages based on those signals, and buyers they don't give a shit, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's the whole signal thing is a timing factor. But and I completely agree with what you're saying, that you shouldn't reach out and go, hey, it's time now. It's like, no. What is the value that you can help me? And we're both aware that the timing could probably be right. I just find it really interesting because I think it's just interesting to see some of this get commoditized. I remember 2-3 years ago, if you got a good, it didn't have to be perfect, but a good email out around, hey, you've just done fundraising, often you would get a response back of like, yeah, you're right, this is on our mind at the moment. Here's the person that will be running that. You should have a call with them. And I just think it's fascinating to see, hey, I've got 30 cold emails that refer to it. And it's very much like that podcast piece, like, hey, heard you on this podcast. Yeah, so
like
what?
The LinkedIn
But
post.
when instead that first sentence in the email is, heard you on this podcast, you talked about this particular thing. I thought you might like this other post that's related to it.
I would honestly get rid of the heard you on a
them.
podcast part. I would just say like,
yeah, great point.
If I heard you say enablement is a problem on a podcast, I can just say, hey, sounds like enablement is a problem you're dealing with right now. Was listening to you on the I would like flip that sentence structure around, start with the problem and then reference where you heard that from. Because it's kind of like it's like for me, at least I've noticed in the last year, so many of the cold emails and messages I get start with notice that you, and it's always like, notice that you liked Scott Lisa's post on LinkedIn. Notice that you notice that you raised money. And my brain's just like, as soon as I see notice that, because I've now been like conditioned to be like, that's a bad cold email. That's a bad cold email. I'm like, cool, sales email, delete. It's just like your brain just tunes it out if it sets off that sixth sense, that trigger, right?
Yeah, you're right. And those emails as well, they seemed pretty smart a few years ago, but now you can go, every other person that commented on that post got this identical email, but instead of Mac at the top, it has their name. I've told you before, I've multiple times gotten, hey, notice that you interacted with Christian Jackenfeld's post. And I'm like, I went back to them a couple of times like, Sure did. That's me. It'd been weird if I hadn't. And they even apologized once, like, yeah, sorry, that's our bad. That's not a great system we
I mean,
got set up
it
here.
kind of goes back to the Monday ClickUp thing, right? It's like, if I can replace the logo in the video, and it can be any company, if I can replace this message, and it's like the message just came from literally anybody else, why are you bothering to send it?
Yeah. I think there's not much more to add here. I just love what you said at the top of this, which is don't confuse the signal with the message. The signal is telling you the timing is good, or the timing could be right, but you still need to deliver value in that message. And if you're bringing in the relationship, that could be a total game changer.
Yeah, it's like signal plus relationship plus non-signal based message, right? It's like you need all three of those for that to work, and it's like you can't. It's like, but too many people are acting on the signal alone as the thing. All right, we got time for one more. Should we bring up this Roy Sutherland quote?
Yeah, let me click on it, and hopefully, let's see if it just does the share this tab instead.
Just gotta zoom in a little bit.
How's that zoom wise? I'll zoom out
a little
bit,
more. Like use the mouse again to like just like like pinch in. Yeah, there you go. So I really want to focus on just like this quote here. So Roy Sutherland, awesome person. If you are in marketing or
fantastic,
you should pay attention to what he says. Like one of the awesome person, just plain and simple.
Yeah.
But this quote, the biggest problem in marketing today is the false god of ROI and ROI prediction. My background is in direct marketing, and measurement is fantastic. The downside is that you're not allowed to do anything that you can't perfectly measure. So you're confined to doing things at the bottom of the funnel. So we talk a lot about like sales being, annoying at times, right? But marketing as well. It's like, it's just this like, I would keep saying like this, the quest for perfect attribution is the dumbest quest of all time, because it's not possible. Like, even if every possible tool in the world, it is physically impossible to track everything, right? The buyer journey is not linear as much as you want it to be. You and me meeting in for dinner and you mentioning a tool you like, and yeah, maybe I mentioned that to you, but like, that's not attributable, right? So like, as far as you're concerned, it's gonna be like, oh, wow, look, our website worked. Matt came to the website and bought. And it's like, no, Christian told me about you, and then I did it, right? Like, there's so much leaky stuff in it. And I think I said this to someone the other day, I'm convinced that a lot of sales and marketing leaders, consciously or not, are more concerned with things being measurable than things being successful.
Yeah. You can repeat measurability, and I think they worry you can't repeat success. So if they try 5 things and one of them works, but they didn't measure, in their mind, they didn't measure well enough, they don't know which of the 5, they don't know where to double down. But do you feel that as long as you've got your ear to the ground, you'll be able to figure out what it was of those 5 things that had the biggest movement?
Yeah, I think there's like I know this is such a thing that like, sales and marketing leaders are like, Matt, but I can't run on vibes. And I'm not saying 100% of what you do. I'm saying 20%, 25% of your budget and time should go towards things that are actually intentionally unmeasurable. And you will know, like, right, like, do I have an exact thing that shows that like someone booked a demo because of the anti-ad? No. Will I ever? Probably not. Could someone mention it on a call? Yeah, they did yesterday. Like, someone mentioned it on a call, right? That they saw it and they thought of us and they liked it. But also, like, you can kind of just tell when something works. Like, yeah, maybe I can't tell you, oh, we spent $5,000 making this video and drove $100,000 of pipeline because of it. But like, you can tell. And it kind of reminds me of people like, people freak out when the stock market goes down on a day. And they're like, oh my God, look at the graph, it's down. But you zoom out to a year and you're like, this little tiny down thing at the end, right? You're like, it's like, as long as the general trend is up and to the right, and you at least have an idea of like directionality for these sorts of things, great, cool.
Yeah.
Like, I think some of the best ideas in sales and marketing don't get done because they're not measurable. I think that's also why sales leaders love calls and emails, because they are perfectly measurable. I made 100 calls, I made 10 connects, I booked 3 meetings, cool. So they invest in the things that they can measure rather than the things that they can't.
I completely agree with you. I think then even if they are placing 20% of the budget into the placing their bets, I think sometimes what happens is they have a bad quarter. They're like, okay, I need to double down somewhere, and unfortunately, they take away from those long-term bets that will work, and they put it into the short-term sure thing, and it just it accelerates them to the end. You've talked before about the Thelma and Louise. Often we know this isn't the right way, but let's go faster. And
Yeah.
you just watch a company stop doing the really effective stuff and double down on every SDR is doing this number of calls, even if they're an SDR who normally doesn't do calls but actually hits their quota. We're going to get them away from LinkedIn messaging, which is working, and just having them do these numbers.
And those are things that don't compound. This is, I think, from a seller's perspective, the way I think about it is if you are relying on your quarter being successful purely on the back of cold calls and emails and outbound, you are literally gambling with your job. What I mean by that is even the best sellers in the world have bad quarters, bad months. For whatever reason, the market is weird, your messaging is off, your list was a little wrong, you felt sick for a week or two, and that threw your whole quarter off, right? Like, you've been a seller, you've had those months where you're 3 quarters in a row, you're doing great, and for one quarter, you're like, I don't know why it just didn't work this quarter, right? And usually, most good leaders understand that. And they're like, hey, you got a bad quarter, no big deal, we'll figure it out, shit happens. The problem is that most companies, if you get unlucky and you just happen to get 2 bad quarters in a row, and you like, let's just say 3 out of 4 quarters every year are great. But if the 2 bad ones happen to be back to back, you got 3 good quarters, a bad quarter, 3 good quarters. You're never going to get to the second 3 good quarters, because by the time you're in your second bad quarter, most salespeople get cut statistically, right? Because they're never investing in things that compound. They are always reliant on my activities this month and this quarter have to pay off this month and this quarter. So it's like I actually think that investing, like taking 10 or 20% of your time and investing in compounding things, yeah, maybe a quarter or 2 will be a little slower. You still hit goal, but you'll set yourself up for better job security, pipeline security, commission check security for quarters 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and beyond.
Yeah, I totally agree, and definitely agree on the 2 bad quarters can be the end, because what normally happens then, you're going to get put on PIP. And what is PIP? PIP is you need to book this many meetings by doing this many calls, and so it's a guarantee that you're not going to be able to place those longer term bets anymore. So unless you've got something that's finally coming good after 2 quarters, you're not going to be starting it then.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it's not either or. It's yes and, right. It's yes, you have to do things that someone at Arcadia a few weeks ago said, you have to prove the 20%, like the 20, you have to prove the short-term 20% to get permission to do the long-term 80%. I thought that was such a good way of framing it. Like, they were talking about from a partner perspective, where partnership professionals tend to lean too much on the long-term only, and they never get there because they fail in the short term. And I think salespeople do the opposite. They're so focused on the short term, they never invest in the long term, and eventually the short term will have a hiccup. That, once again, like, just statistically speaking, even the best sellers don't have 8 quarters in a row where it's good, especially not in this market, right? Like, it's just, there are things out of your control. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, spot on. And I wonder, you're speaking to Rory Sutherland soon, right? Can we talk about that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Never heard of it. Yeah. Have you read his book, Mac? Have you read the
I haven't.
book?
I've read Ogilvy's Ogilvy on Advertising one, which is, I love how, like, if you took out 1 or 2 references in that book was written last year as far as I'm concerned. Like, which also goes back to the funny thing of, like, nothing new under the sun. Everyone's like, look, I invented new shit. And you're like, this guy wrote this book in like 1959 and it's pretty much the same applicable shit today. Yeah, he talks about how television was taking over and this replaced television with internet, right? And like, same shit. Same shit, different channel. I read that. And then I just book-wise, just another recommendation before we end. I just grabbed a book called, I'm going to grab it. I can't remember what it's called. 1 second.
Do it. Go for it. I've just reordered How to Make Friends and Influence People, because every 5 to 10 years I give that a reread, because it's, again, there's a great book that was written 60 years ago or something, it is as applicable today as any day.
Yeah. This book, which actually, ironically, the quote at the top telling you it's a good book is from Rory. I didn't realize that until just now. But very good. I have to hold it here so the green screen doesn't freak out. Very good copy.
Very good copy.
Just came out by Eddie Schlainer. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. It's 207 micro lessons on thinking and writing like a copywriter. I think it's just cool. Like I've been doing a lot more writing the last year than I did before. I feel like I'm getting better at it, but it's just like, whether you're writing cold emails, writing LinkedIn posts, writing blog posts, like it's not just for copyright. I think it's just like lots of really cool, just like thoughts. You're like, oh yeah, like that makes sense, right? Like, I just like, let's just open one. It's just like, what's the first page he has here? Like on how to acquire perspective. Like, it's just like little things. Like none of it's like just take this and copy it. It's just like little things of just like little examples. Yeah. You write anything and you probably like it. It sounds good to you. But like, it's this idea that like, suddenly you're too close to it because suddenly it just happened to you where like you work on something, whether it's writing or not. You love it. You step away, you come back and like, fuck, I hate it. Like little things like that. It's been a good book so far. I recommend it.
Nice. Very cool. I mean, we're nearly at time. Anything you want to add? Otherwise, we can begin to wrap it up.
I'll add a dinosaur fun fact just to be on brand. I actually learned this one at Arcadia. I didn't know this one, so it's like a fresh dino fact for me. T-Rexes were likely not apex predators. They were likely scavengers. And that's based on the fact that there's fossil evidence that like in one region, there could have been as many as 20,000 T-Rexes at a time, which if you look at like how predators versus scavengers, et cetera, like play out in the wild, like that's too many. Like nature, usually ecosystems can't support that many apex predators in one area at a time, but they can support that many like vultures or hyenas or things like that, which also goes to the fact that T-Rexes probably couldn't move very fast. So they probably would have been pretty shit hunters anyways. So,
and then, so if they were more like vultures, then they were probably the big teeth, big jaws to break the bones.
They were like, oh, here's a dead body. Let me get rid of all the other small dinosaurs and scare them away. And this is my food now.
And get the marrow and everything. Interesting. Yeah. Man, there is never enough dinosaur facts. That is also a fact.
They have discovered and classified 30 new species of dinosaurs this year alone. Like, you think they're done? You think paleontology is like a finished science? It is absolutely not. Anyways, that's a whole different show.
Just enough time to discuss the meme you posted the other day of the lady that has a gold in trampolining at the Olympics and a PhD in dinosaurs.
Yep.
That is incredible.
That is great. So good.
Do you regret your career decisions now, seeing that was an option?
No. I probably wouldn't have been able to survive school long enough to get a degree in paleontology, let alone a PhD in anything. I would have.
It's a lot of years.
Yeah. I made it like 3 months in university before I dropped out. I think a PhD is like a little bit more than 3 months.
Did you restart after Christmas, or you got to Christmas and were like, okay, guys, that's it?
Yeah, that was it. I just wasn't for me.
Fair enough.
All right. On that note,
that brings us to time.
I guess I'm hosting next week.
You are indeed.
You are on vacation. How dare you take a vacation? I didn't approve that shit.
I go back in our system.
It's been
later.
deleted.
It's unapproved. But yeah, Mac is hosting next week. More dinosaur facts to come. And of course, if you like what we talk about, you want to learn more about GoToNetwork, you can check out comsor.com, or of course, feel free to message Mac or myself. More than happy to have a chat, show you what we're working on, and it's the future.
This is the way.